Welcome to My Money, Your Money, a talk show on generational wealth, wealth management, and personal finance. Now introducing our host, Ms. Brigette Lumpkins.
Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to My Money, Your Money, where we talk about all things related to wealth management, personal finance, and investments, brought to you by our generous sponsors, DeMesman and Dover Accident Attorneys, and the Florida Lottery. I'm your host, Brigette Lumpkins. I earned an MBA from Wharton and have worked at firms such as Goldman Sachs, Lehman Brothers, and Barclays, serving institutional and private clients, as well as raising capital for investment funds. Currently, I'm an executive at a crypto asset management firm in Miami. I'm thrilled to welcome our guest today, Mr. Troy Prince. He is the founder and CEO of Wall Street Bound. He's a Bronx native and alum of NYU Business School and a 20-year Wall Street veteran with extensive buy and sell side trading experience at premier U.S. and international firms, plus 5 years as an angel investor in Vietnam. Troy has founded Wall Street Bound, as I mentioned earlier, which seeks to give opportunities to underrepresented minorities in the Wall Street sector. So I want to welcome Troy and invite him to say more about his career and Wall Street Bound before we get sort of started with the Q&A. Troy, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit more about yourself. I gave a brief introduction. I know it doesn't do you justice because we have time constraints, but what else would you like to tell our listeners about yourself before we sort of dig into the discussion?
As you mentioned, born and raised in New York City, specifically on the border of the South Bronx, but atypical in that my parents, both West Indian. Education was just always very clear and there wasn't much messing around, hanging out in the neighborhood. And so I was fortunate to have a teacher as a mother. And I found the stock market at age 15. And I read a book, that was called Market Wizards. And by graduation at 16, I knew exactly what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. So it's been a journey. We'll delve back into some detail at some point, but kid from the South Bronx, not particularly exceptional. And I've lived an interesting life and I've done interesting things and just trying to live my purpose now to bring this message, bring this mindset back to our community.
So I'm very curious to know how you discovered the stock market at 15. Were you reading the paper and you saw the ticker in the paper? How did you come across it? Did a mentor turn you on to it?
Nothing as interesting as that. What I remember is social studies, teacher, very random, but there was extra points on your final grade for whomever picked the stock that performed well over the course of whatever, 6 months or a year it was.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I picked Johnny John, and lo and behold, and that's the first experience I remember just what this thing was about. And it was just something that stuck with me of like, okay, that's interesting. That's great for me. Let me dig in a little bit more. I do recall that, being 15 at a specialized high school, there were kids my age that were already trading, and that was impressive to me. And so lo and behold, I found that book, Market Wizards. And again, by 16, by graduation, I knew what I wanted to do. By 17, I was cold calling at Shearson Lehman.
Wow, that's crazy. So were you able to trade once you started looking at the stock market, or was it theoretical?
No. I started trading as early as 18. Okay. I remember starting off with penny stocks.
Okay.
Because the following year, after I realized that retail wasn't really for me, I knew I wanted to go institutional. And so I got a job working part-time around school at Salomon Brothers, what's now Citibank, but it was the Goldman Sachs of its day. And so there you go, Sally. And so by 18, I was messing around with penny stocks, but that's another conversation, I guess.
Right. Well, I do think it relates directly to what we're trying to talk about here, which is really to talk about wealth generation. And a lot of people in our community, Black people, don't even know about the stock market, much less that stock market is a possible career path for them, which can lead to tremendous wealth generation for themselves and their families and access. So, I know you and I both know from our careers on trading floors how few of us there are. So can you walk us through, where you went to college? You said you worked your way through college at Solly. Tell us a little bit more about that and how you got access to, first of all, how'd you end up at Shearson Lehman at 17 making retail cold calls? And how was that transition to the institutional business at Solly, which is what I'm hearing you said?
Yes, thank you. So, to partly pay for school, to partly just, I needed to work part-time. But again, knowing exactly what I wanted to do, it never occurred to me to do anything but find a part-time job in the field. Mm-hmm. And so Shearson Lehman, I don't remember how I got the job, but Solomon was definitely through the jobs board. I'm a graduate of Stern undergrad in '92, and this is the time where jobs were postcards on a wall in the career office.
Right.
And I walk into the office, I see Solomon Brothers. I interview with someone there. This was in operations, and it turns out that the boss was an NYU guy. And he's like, not that many students have replied. It's surprising, but lo and behold, I took that card off the wall. And so that's how I got that job at Solomon. But this was a time where Liar's Poker was written.
Right. I read that. We've all read that book. Everybody else read that book. Of course. Uh-huh.
Louis of Gutfrin, Ranieri, and that's that story. And I used to sneak up to the trading floor. Mm-hmm. And it was very interesting because in operations where I was, we had a few students, but you definitely had a fair amount of career people there who were, you had black and brown, but a few flights upstairs to the trading floor, it was like a different planet. Right. I always remembered that, but, it didn't really faze me because I was on a mission. I knew what I wanted to do. And that year, I think it's 1991, turned out that Solomon Brothers, you might remember a treasury bond, the bidding scandal. Mm-hmm. And so Warren Buffett, as the largest shareholder, came in as interim chairman, had a town hall meeting. And I say to myself, I'm going to meet this guy. And I went out and bought my first suit, pair of shoes. And I town hall meeting. And by this time I had decided that I wanted to go live in Japan after graduation, because again, Pebble Hill, Rockefeller Center, the Nikkei's at its zenith. And I'm studying French. I'm like, why? Japan has taken over the world. So I started teaching myself Japanese. So I go to this meeting, Warren Buffett. Hey,
can I interject for a moment?
Of course.
For our listeners, the Nikkei is the stock market index for the Japanese stock market. Right. So the Nikkei index basically is a representation of the value of the Japanese stock market, just like the Dow or the S&P is for the US stock market. Okay, go ahead, Troy.
Forgive me. Basically, the Dow Jones of Japan. Mm-hmm. And so
you taught yourself Japanese.
Yes, I have a 9-year-old here. And so, so Warren Buffett, he says, he didn't really say much here, talk to this guy. Turns out he introduced me to one of his lieutenants who was gave me the number to the CEO of Solomon Brothers Japan. That began my journey. I was on a plane to Asia maybe 2 weeks after graduation.
Okay, so that's a really remarkable story. That would be remarkable for a white boy. How did that happen to you? I'm sure you were excellent in your endeavors, because all of us who work in that field have to be excellent, because we get bounced out the door day one if we weren't, right? That's a default. That's table stakes. You don't have to be as good as the person next to you who's white. You have to be better. We all know that. So I'm sure you were performing and you were excellent. But so you get in front of Warren Buffett and he introduces you to a lieutenant. You get in front of the CEO of Solly Japan and you're on it. But, how did that's a remarkable story.
I appreciate that. But, I would say I appreciate that. But I think part of the message I try to bring as the CEO founder of this nonprofit org, doing this work, bringing more of our young people into the industry, is that it need not necessarily be.
Right.
Young people, sometimes people ask me, hey, Japan, wow, how'd you get there? And I'm like, a taxi to the airport, JFK.
Right.
it
Exactly. It's more,
is,
yeah.
but it's not. Sometimes young people, I say, for less than the cost of a pair of sneakers that some of you young people wear, that was the cost of my ticket. So
Right.
for me, again, Japan was at the top. Japan was dominant in the global market. The timing was there. I knew what I wanted to do with my career and my life. It just made sense, and so I made it happen. So maybe remarkable, but no more, I think, than any of us people. We know when we put our minds and hearts into something, there's no stopping us. And so I put my head down. That's what I wanted. I made it happen. So remarkable in a way, but no more, I think, than any of our people have the opportunity. We do it in different ways every day.
So were you still in an operations role then, or is that when you made your transition to
No, that
upstairs?
was it. That was it. Because I told the lieutenant, like, I want to be a trader. I mean, it was clear.
Right.
So I landed. Actually, spent the first 8 or 9 months playing around in Taiwan. Once I landed in Tokyo, Louis Faust. I don't know how I remember this name. That was CEO of Solomon Tokyo in '92. Nothing was available, but I ended up actually, interestingly enough, through the head of the equity trading desk of Solomon, got introduced and landed at CS First Boston, what is now Credit Suisse. And that's what began my career in front office. I was actually middle office. I was part trading assistant, and I also was a controller doing P&L, the accounting for the traders. And so that was a move, middle office, on the trading floor, working close with traders and having them throw, you give them bad accounting, they get angry, they throw it back at you. And that was my
Right.
indoctrination to that world. But that was a move forward.
So you were still in a support role, but moving up from like completely downstairs to sort of purgatory, right? On your
Mm-hmm.
way to front office. And I think we're using a bit of jargon here, but in finance, I want to explain to those of you watching, the people who do the trading, like you see on Wall Street, like in movies and everything, that's considered the front office because those are the people who talk to clients and generate revenue. Then there's a layer of people who support them with regard to basically the paperwork. Then there's another group of people who do even further back in the behind the scenes of the transactions work, which is where Troy mentioned he started, which was downstairs. And that's where you typically see the black and brown people in operations. And that's called back office. And then middle office is that purgatory I referred to. And then front office is, again, when you get to be in front of clients on planes to Japan, popping bottles, all of that good stuff.
There you go. Client or investment facing. So
Right.
that's where it started. And took me a year or so before I actually was on a trading desk in
Okay.
a trading position. And so by 22, 23, I was back in New York on the equity trading desk here in New York with Salomon Brothers. And
Okay,
since
so you were in
then,
Asia a couple of years, sort of cutting your teeth, working your way up, and you made it back to the big stage in New York City.
indeed. But altogether, I mean, listen, I'm 50 years old now. I ended up going back to Japan 2 more times. So I
Okay.
spent a total of 8 years in Tokyo,
Okay.
5 years in Vietnam, 2 years in Spain, a year in Paris.
Okay.
I think that's it.
Well, wow, that's a lot of stamps in the passport. But I do think that, you make a really good point. And I want to go back to what you said about how do you get there? Because I think people think that these faraway places for work or otherwise are more inaccessible than they are. But really, all you do is pick a date, buy a ticket, and pack your bag, get in a taxi, get to the airport. And it's not like you have to drive the plane, It's not that complicated. It's really about your will to go and your decision to allocate resources to that rather than something else. And in the case of you, for your career, I'm sure you didn't pay for any of those tickets. That's covered by the firm.
Indeed. The flight, time-wise at least, to Europe is equal to a flight to California, right?
Absolutely.
And
Or a good
so,
long nap on a rainy
or a
afternoon.
good long nap. Exactly. So I was fortunate, but again, it's nothing more special than anyone else is capable of. I just, was very singular and focused.
And did it. So you had this career in Wall Street, and I really, we could spend all of our time talking about that, but I really want to talk about your current passion and how your career, your global career as a trader, led you to try to scale a way to create access for other people, because I've talked to people about scaling their ability to be in a position to help others. And if you're just one person as an MD on a desk, you can only hire one or two analysts at a time. You can't always hire the black kid. You can't. So how do you provide scale to that to bring more kids? What is the origin story of Wall Street Bound?
Indeed. Thank you. Smooth segue, by the way. Thank you. So, so multiple firms, client side, buy side, sell side, as the broker, working for the brokerage, as the client, buying and selling. And for most of that time, I'm the only black person on the desk, much less on the trading floor. And at some point, I just begin scratching my head. Early on when I'm young, it feels like it's okay, like I'm special. But at some point, you're like, it's just strange. And this idea that we can't find them.
Yeah.
And, I'm the eldest of 5 kids. All of us have degrees. One of my sisters, double degrees in psychology from Columbia. So I'm like, what are you talking about? Just come home to dinner with me. Like, much less my neighborhood. And I remember smart kids around tennis courts, congregations, cousins, cousins.
I went to an HBCU and I know thousands of really smart black people. Thousands.
Yes. I had cousins, lived in the projects, but put a Monopoly board in the room. I don't care who you are, you're coming out dead. And so it just occurred to me that it's just strange. And, I grew up near Yankee Stadium, which is 12 miles from the New York Stock Exchange, the greatest economic engine mankind has ever known. And how is it that where I grew up, my congressional district, the 16th, it was actually changed. No, it still might be the 16th district, the poorest congressional district in all of America. Humans run that in an hour. Train, it's 30, 40 minutes. Like that, it's what's happening here. And so at some point, it just became my mission to just, clearly Wall Street on its own, the investment apparatus on its own, really doesn't care or doesn't have the will to really see our young people for what they can be, what they are beyond the pants and the sneakers and the hair. Like, it's just crazy. And so at some point I said, listen, it's not going to happen organically. And it just became very clear, if not a guy like me, who is coming back to do this? And Wall Street Bound, the idea was born. I moved back from Vietnam winter 2019. And I just said, Troy, like, if not now, when? I'll just throw in, I'll let you jump back in. But I would visit New York once a year in the summers. And I'm coming home for a week out of the year and still seeing the kids dancing on the trains for coins. I'm like, we're more than this. Talented as they may be, something's got to change. And Troy, who are you looking around for? And so I came home, and within, I think, of a month or so, I created the first deck, and the curriculum maybe less than 3 months after that.
Okay, so can you tell us more about so that's an inspirational story, and I really can relate to it. It's part of the reason why I do the show, to try to reach people and share that knowledge about money and finance and the whole bit with people as a way to scale the dissemination of that knowledge, because what we don't know does hurt us. But as far as access to careers on Wall Street and what you're doing, what was in the deck? What are you pitching?
So initially, the idea was to go to Wall Street looking for funds to bring Wall Street uptown. So it's more broadly speaking in terms of income and wealth gap, wealth generation, economic participation. But what I found was that workforce development piece was quite critical in terms of our young people coming out of school with degrees, and they're sold on this idea that all I need to do is go to college and everything is set, piece of cake, send my resume to monster.com and off we go. But it's not at all like that. No. And so this idea of what else do they need, even to be privy to where those interviews are, how to get through those interviews, soft skills, technical skills, because clearly, for better or for worse, that's another probably podcast in terms of how well our colleges and universities are really preparing our young people, much less ours. And so there's a whole world of things that they just don't know, like to graduate and not have 2 summers interning at a firm, you're already 2 years behind.
Yeah.
And so it just became apparent that I need to come up with a way to beyond just a technical curriculum, but to provide some of that network, which is a big part of it, the soft skills, professional skills, and basically that social capital to get our young people into the room. Because no matter how smart you are, if you don't know where the door is,
Right.
how do you even, reach out your hand to turn the knob?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, so what are the particulars? Who are you, how does it work? How many students are you mentoring, or what are you teaching them? What is the curriculum? What are you providing job placement support? What does Wall Street Bound actually do on a day-to-day basis? And do you have sponsorship from those Wall Street firms? And is it really incumbent upon them to make this? Is it a donation? Is it an investment? How are you pitching that?
That's a loaded question, the last one. So I'll start off with, so Wall Street Bound, we focus primarily on undergraduate, college and university students of color. We have 3 programs. The first we call the Introduction to Wall Street Boot Camp. It's exactly that, 20 to 25 hours of hard skills and soft skills training, mostly introductions to the jargon, the industry, the career paths. We always have speakers, presenters, people of color, professionals that are in the space, relatable, culturally adjacent. So that's just to get sort of, for those that do have an idea of the industry, that firms that for them. For those that have no idea, this gives you a sense as to if this is something you even might want to pursue or not. Then we have.
Can we talk about? I just want to, because again, like we use so much vocabulary amongst us in the business. Sometimes I forget, we forget. I've left people behind that were very, very smart and just didn't have the same vocabulary, which is hard skills, which would mean what, like modeling, accounting,
exactly,
sort of technical skills, and then soft skills meaning
presentation, what? Teamwork. A lot of it is how you present. We go a little bit deeper in terms of behavioral analysis. One of the things I do that's very, very not special, but that's different is this idea of, really taking a look at who we are and how we, it's one thing to come to the office, as they say, authentically. It's another thing to come with a sense as to who you really are as a person, your behavioral quirks and traits. Because again, the way we communicate uptown, the way we solve problems, that's not how it works downtown. It's will never really serve us. And so some of the work we do is looking at our behavioral strengths and weaknesses and being cognizant, being aware of them, so that when we're in situations, we're more prepared to face the challenges of working in a largely white, I was going to say all white atmosphere, and that at times can be quite, unwelcoming. Isolating. Unwelcoming. And so regardless of your ability to do Excel modeling, to analyze stocks, regardless of that, at the end of the day, how do we build into ourselves the comfort with being uncomfortable and dealing with challenging situations? Because all that stuff goes out the window if someone makes a bad joke and you have a reaction. So that's
you're out the door. You're out the door.
Gone.
Over.
Even before you said anything, the look on your face, and so
you're difficult, you're combative, you're not a team player.
Yes. So that's a big part of it for us. And we lean into that with our second program, which is called Wall Street Direct, an intensive 150-hour training, which is mostly focused around credentialing. The CAIA, their new introductory program called Fundamentals of Alternative Investments, the FAI. The first FINRA. FINRA is the industry's regulatory body. Let's call it our quasi-government governing body for the finance industry. All the credentialing that you need to do to get into the industry, FINRA. Their first level exam we prepare students for, so that no matter where you are, where you went to school, you've got that FINRA stamp on your resume. It is absolutely different conversation. Young people, even our community, they don't even realize before a human even sees your resume, the machines are doing the Boolean search looking for keywords.
Right.
Well, I'll change that. You're in the club now. And then going deeper on those technical skills that we spoke of and the soft skills, but the majority of it is to pair them technically and professional skills for the internship interviews. And that's where the corporate partners come in. That's a loaded question and a long story, but I'll say this, sister. When I first started, I thought there was really such a thing as philanthropy, and there is. So they give us donations.
It's just
They
tax write-off.
sponsor, but it's not. Besides the tax write-off, Wall Street has really embraced Wall Street Bound for obvious reasons. Especially since last year. But a lot of it's because, quite frankly, besides whatever altruism and tax benefits, that in an era where diverse talent has become more of a thing to be interested in, we present a pipeline for them, a credible, trained pipeline where they're able to support the work, give donations, but yet get access to talent. And so it's, it's adding value to their pipelines, and they support our work with the fiscal support. We're able to scale our work. So it's it is a market what it is, and my job is to make it work to the benefit of our community.
So you're not going to believe this, but we're almost out of time.
Wow.
I know. I told you it was going to go fast.
Sorry, just talking your listeners' ears off.
But we could talk all day. And there's so many different directions I could take this, and so many follow-up questions I can ask. But what I do want to do is find out two things, which is one, what are your goals for Wall Street Bound today? And then secondly, if there's anyone watching, whether it's a parent who has a kid or a kid who's like, I think that could be me, and I think this is something I'd be interested in, what is the best way for them to get involved, especially if they're a kid in South Florida, because you're talking to a South Florida market here?
Okay, for sure. So yes, if there's interest in exploring the industry, certainly feel free to sign up on our website, and you'll hear back from one of our team members, if not myself. Our programs, our applications are ongoing. It's a rolling application process, and someone will absolutely get back to you. We're building a mentoring platform now, and we'd love to just have all young people who are interested to join our community.
And is there any cost to the students?
No, none. I was going to just add that we do have a program for those also that are uniquely interested in trading. But listen, with any interest, we go through signups, and you might even hear back from me on any given occasion. Just feel free to reach out. You will absolutely hear from someone, because we are here exactly for young people, for those interested in exploring the industry or that know they want to go and just going deeper.
And so if they want to reach you, your website is wallstreetbound.org.
Correct.
And what is next for Wall Street Bound? I know that the deal with CAIA, which is the Chartered Alternative Investment Association, it's a credential, it's a 2-exam credential that both Troy, you and I have earned, and that's how we met, is through our involvement with CAIA. But so you just did the FAI initiative with them, which was a huge partnership. What's on the horizon? So
Wall Street Bound, we're just, our main focus is scaling the work. To date, we've have mentored, trained, probably approaching 300 students so far. We'll probably do that number alone next year.
Okay.
Going forward, my ambition is to, number one, get this curriculum, get this idea of the investor mindset, the markets and investing to a younger audience. So we'll definitely be leaning into high school starting next year. Okay. And I would say 5 years forward or less, the idea is for Wall Street Bound to also, beyond just workforce and the industry, turn ourselves into a community investment platform. Because for me, ultimately, the idea of training young people to become interested as investors, owners, wealth builders, I don't want to just send them downtown to Wall Street to make, Jamie Dimon more billions. Let's deploy those skills uptown. And so ultimately we become a community investment platform with those young people that we've trained, analyzing real estate cash flows downtown for KKR, uptown flipping properties. That's where we go within the next, I would say easily 1, 2 to 3 years.
Right. Nothing wrong with spending a year or two at KKR, but bring those.
No, of course not. That's where you cut your teeth. We have a program now. I'll just very quickly say we have a program where we actually provide capital for young people to manage. Like, that can be done anywhere. No reason that can't be above a bodega in, South Florida or the South Bronx. No reason.
That's right. That's right. All you need is internet.
All you need is internet.
That's right. Well, Troy, it's always a pleasure talking to you. I'm so glad we were able to connect and we were able to have you join us tonight. I feel like we left so much on the table, but we gave everybody just a little taste. And certainly tell me where people can reach you. Is it troy@wallstreetbound.org?
Troy@wallstreetbound.org. That's it. Thank you.
And of course, you have the website, which is wallstreetbound.org for more information. Please visit it. It's an excellent organization. It's got major backing. Who are some of your backers?
We've got funding from Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, just a lot the big names out there.
All of the big funds. So certainly feel free to peruse the website, reach out to Troy if you have questions and want to get involved or know a young person who wants to get involved. And again, thank you so much, Troy, for joining us. And thank you, listeners, for joining us tonight. Please watch our other MIA Media Group shows on Mondays, The Business of Black Business at 1 p.m. with Jay Reynolds. Tuesday, My Money, Your Money at 7 p.m. with me, Brigette Lumpkins. Wednesday, Soul at 7 p.m. with Nikki Gellin. Thursdays, Lunch with Legacy Leaders at 12 noon with Anne-Marie Sorrell. And Flavor of South Florida at 7 p.m. with the legendary Chef Irie. Thank you so much for joining us, and let's close that gap.